How's it going, guys? Today is another day down here in the shop, and we got my big package that I've been waiting forever for. So this is from ISR. It's for the 180, and this is the... They sent the wrong one and would be very, very upset. This is the ISR intake manifold with the throttle body, the fuel rail, and all the other goodies that you need to actually assemble this thing. So what I'm going to do is tonight we're going to get this thing torn down, and we're going to take off the old intake plenum. We are going to just bolt this one up with 2 bolts. We're going to take some measurements for the intercooler piping so we can get the intercooler piping all mocked up and set and ready to go with this one. Send the intercooler piping over to Hutch's Welding so we can get that all set. We're going to start tucking the wire harness underneath the intake plenum so that we can actually get that looking well. Put in our fuel system, put in the injectors, and then we should be able to hook everything up and be ready to go. So that's what we're going to do for basically the rest of the week on the 180, and then we're going to do some more stuff on the G. I hope to get some stuff done on the G. It's actually raining out right now, and the G is still, it's leaking a little bit. I saw that it's actually leaking on the, what is that? I literally just put this tarp up and it already blew off again. So it's actually leaking a little bit on the driver's side too, so I have to figure out what that leak is from. It's actually coming out of the speaker, which is very, very bad and weird, so I don't know how I'm feeling about that, but we're gonna go ahead and figure out a couple of these things and do that stuff. So let's go ahead and get to the shop work for the day. Okay guys, so now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking off this manifold and putting onto this one. So I've been waiting a very long time for this. This is an ISR intake manifold with a 76mm throttle body, a fuel rail for top feed injectors. I have some 1000cc injectors right here, and fuel pressure regulators all ready for all of this. So Buddy, what do you think of this thing?
I think it looks sick. I'm excited to see what it looks like in the engine bay.
I know.
Get rid of that rat nest.
Definitely looks better than the rug nest right now.
It does.
What are you talking about? That shit's sick.
All right, guys.
This is a real forward facing.
What are we racing tonight? I don't have a turbo, never mind.
So you just digging yourself.
I mean, mine won't run after tonight either because this is going to take more than just a day to put together. We're going to be tucking the wire harness underneath the plenum, and we're going to be doing a lot of custom fab work for the fuel rail and for the intercooler piping because this intercooler piping will not fit anymore. I also need to get a bigger coupler and to just move a couple other things around. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this. First, we're going to start by taking off the intercooler piping and then undoing the fuel lines and taking off the plenum and taking off all the hoses. So let's go ahead and get this plenum off. Guys, so step one is kind of complete. We have the intercooler piping off on this side. I'm going to have to block off the intercooler side on the bottom, and then I have the harness all disconnected over here, so the harness is all out of the way now. Now it's just going to be taking out the fuel lines, draining out the coolant, and continuing on from there. Now that I'm looking at the side, I don't think I actually need to drain the coolant, but we'll see. I know there's a couple coolant lines that do go to the plenum, so we'll have to look and see what we got going on. Let's go ahead and pop the gas cap off and then get these fuel lines off. Okay guys, so on the SR here, we have a bunch of stuff going on. The intake plenum is obviously off. You can see that there's no more intake plenum. It's right here. Wasn't that hard to get off, just a couple of 12s. Actually disconnect the 12s on the top piece that mounts to the head, and then take your throttle cable off, your fuel lines, and the coolant lines that run to the throttle, and then you just have an open mess. So that you just pull this thing off. So after you pull this off, you can go ahead and grab your nice ISR intake plenum that you take very good care of, and you should probably put some blue tape on it because it's going to be moved around a lot. But I have the throttle body all bolted up. I have to just take this thing and put it onto there now and test to see how it's going to fit. So we'll do that in 1 second. But on the top up here, we have what I explained in the last video. These are the 370Z coil packs. So what we're going to do is we're going to run all of these wires actually underneath because these are very loose in here. Obviously, I'm going to secure these down tighter in a later video. But for right now, just for test purposes, we're going to see how these fit in here and just go from there. But these are what we'll be running in this thing. It'll give us a better spark and we won't have any spark problems. So basically what you have to do for the igniter chip is you just have to wire all of them together. I'm saying that completely wrong. You have to, there's one wire that you don't use because one side is a 4 and then the other side is a 5 pin. So you have to figure out which side is which, and then you have to wire certain wires together. Wiring Specialties makes a connector harness for this piece exactly, so I might buy that or I might make my own, depending on how I'm feeling. So let's go ahead and test the intake plenum though and see how it fits. Then we're gonna drop our intercooler piping back in and we're gonna give it a nice cut and see what we got going on with that. Okay guys, so a little continuation of yesterday's video. We're back here at the shop. Last night it was a good night. We got the intake plenum off. We got the new intake plenum on. Actually, I had to drill just a little bit on the new intake plenum so that I could actually fit it. One of the dowels in the very back wasn't fitting properly, so what I did was I just oblonged the hole out a little bit so that it actually fit over it. The surface did not get messed up at all, so I am good to go with putting that on. But last night, me and Roberto, the last little thing that we did was we ended up cutting the intercooler piping and getting it somewhat mocked up for the reinstallation. So if I go over here and I pop the hood for you guys, what we got going on under here is a big jumbled mess, but it's gonna come out very, very nice when we're all said and done here. So what we have going on is basically, I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna do something like this, where the intercooler piping comes up out of the bottom down there and then it just comes up at like a 45 right here. We're gonna get a 45 coupler that goes from the intake manifold to the intercooler piping here, and that should be about it. So basically all I have to do is I have to get this welded, but before I do that, I want to get the intercooler coupler so that we can mock it up the proper way and not have to redo it twice. So I'll order that tonight or tomorrow, and this will continue on its way. But I think today's objective is to go ahead and get the fuel rail set up a little bit with the injectors in it and run like a couple of lines. We're gonna go over what we're doing on Rob's car, which Rob's car is another big project which is going on in the shop right now. This is the highest horsepower car that I have built here at the shop so far. So we're gonna go over what we got going on over here. So guys, on Rob's car here, we have the front suspension, we have the rear suspension, we have the motor in. On the front suspension here, we replaced this ball joint right here. This is the inner ball joint for the lower control arm. We need to replace the outer ball joint for the lower control arm. We ordered those yesterday. So we replaced both ball joints on both sides. This side is all bolted up and everything. The coilover is in. The upper control arm is tight. The sensor is all ran for the ABS. Now all I have to do is install this when this comes and put the brake line on this side because this is not on right now, and then we can go ahead and get the front brake setup all on. You know I love that endless brake kit, but the thing is very expensive, so when we put these things on, we're going to go ahead and tape them all up so nothing scratches them and they stay perfectly clean for Rob. On the back here though, what we have going on is we have a Hikist Elite, just stiffen up the rear a little bit more. So we put the bar in. Now I have to come over here and take off the actual tie rods themselves off of the rear Hikist and put these back on. These ball joints on both ends are still good, so we're just gonna reuse those. Retie this down with some mechanics wire, get that nice and tight for them. And then we have to put one sensor back on so that the Hikist light does not come on. So I have to ask Roberto which one that is and plug that one back in. But other than that, on the back of the car here, everything is coming out good. So let's go ahead and finish up this Hikist Elite. Okay guys, so this is the fuel rail that ISR sends you. It has a little logo somewhere on here. Right there, ISR Performance. They give you all the fittings and everything. This is actually such a good kit, guys. They give you the fittings that give you to dash 6 right here. Sorry about my disgusting looking hands. But what we're gonna do is, just for an added little bit of measure, I know that these have an O-ring on them, but for safety purposes, we're gonna go ahead and put just a tad bit of RTV on here, ultra gray, or if you guys have like a Nissan spec or like a Honda Bond type silicone, that will suffice too. Just do not use the red one because that is not for fuel use. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna dab a little bit of RTV on the side right here, and then we're gonna put these in and cinch them down nice and tight so that nothing comes out of them. We're not going to be running too high of horsepower on this car, so we're not going to need to be doing the return system through the center. So we're just going to block off the centerpiece, and we're going to have it feed from one side to the other. So let's go ahead and do that really quick, and then get this thing bolted onto the intake plenum. Okay guys, so now that the fittings are all put on, you can see the RTV on this one just a little bit. I like to clean the RTV off of the ends, the stuff that smushes out on the sides, because I just don't like to see it. So now what we have to do is you have to get this thing into the car, which is outside, and which it is raining outside pretty bad right now. So I think I'm just going to wait a little bit and see what happens with the rain. But if not, then we're going to go ahead and throw this thing in later on, get this thing all set up. And I think what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to run 90 fittings off of the ends, and we should be able to run one fitting to the fuel pressure regulator, and then just a straight down to the flex fuel sensor, and then another straight out. So it should be a pretty simple install, and let's go ahead see what we could do with this thing. Okay guys, so it's nighttime now, and we're going to go ahead and see how we can get this fuel rail on and run these lines now. So let's go ahead, start this little project up. Okay guys, so the intake plenum is on, just with one bolt still. We have the fuel rail all set up. We had to do a little bit of modification of this fuel rail. So the bolts that they supplied me were actually too long for the injectors that I was running. So I had to trim the bolts, and also I had to trim the spacers that they give you. So after doing that though, everything fits properly and everything is a-okay in the neighborhood. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to actually run the two lines for this. But before we do that, I'm gonna have to check which fuel line is which, because I did not mark them, and it's pretty easy. All you have to do is put the battery on and prime the system real quick, and it'll spurt out just a little bit of gasoline, and then we could go ahead and see which one is which. So fuel feed is the front one here, return is in the back. It's gonna go to this side one right here, and then we're gonna go straight down from the fuel pressure regulator to the flex fuel sensor, and then back into the fuel system. Okay guys, so I didn't actually need to see which one was the feed and which one was the return, because we have this awesome Sylvia that we have here in the shop that's for sale. How much is this going for?
11.6.
11.6.
With working AC, nice and comfy, turbo, CA18.
Yeah, there you go. So we took a look at that thing, and then we came over here and we saw which lines are which, and now we have a feed line coming from the rail down there up to the beginning of the rail here, flowing through all the injectors to the back, to another fitting back there, to this side of the fuel pressure regulator, and then out. And then we're gonna finish this up tomorrow because Rudnick needs to go home.
You ready?
And, he's ready. He's
Are you
definitely
ready? Bye guys.
But that's about it.
What is that, turbo timer?
Yes. But that's about it. If you guys liked the video, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, comment, share, do all the good stuff. More 180 content, hopefully some G content at the end of the week, and I'll see you guys in the next one.